Hi, there is Sanjay Gangal from uh, Sanjay Tech Cafe. I'm here with Scott Bibaud, CEO and President of Atomera. Hello, Scott.
Hi, Sanjay.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Scott. Tell us briefly about the company itself, the Atomera.
I'd love to tell you about Atomera. Atomera is a company that makes a material we call MST. Developed this material on computers starting way back in the early 2000s and spent a decade developing it and coming up with a way to make it manufacturable. And ultimately, this is a material that we use when people make transistors. We put the material inside the transistor and it improves performance either by lowering power consumption or giving it faster processing or in some ways improving the yield. So it's kind of an interesting toolbox where we can optimize it for certain customer processes and applications to do all kinds of different interesting things.
Maybe, tell us more about your Mears Silicon Technology, MST, and how does it fit in today's semiconductor landscape and what unique value it offers compared to other performance enhancing materials.
Yeah, so we talk about four separate different application areas that we're really focused on right now. And so I can give you an idea about what it does just by talking briefly about each of those. So one of them is on legacy power nodes that are BCD technology, which is used to make higher voltage chips for various applications like power management chips for your phone or for computers or for automotive or industrial applications, maybe 5 volts to 50 volts type of ranges. And those technologies were developed decades ago. As a matter of fact, most of them are still in production on process nodes that were introduced in the 90s. And with our technology, we can allow them to get some entirely, by integrating our material, they can get entirely new performance levels that they haven't been able to get to before. And we have a number of papers and information about how we do that. We also do a lot of work on RF front ends for mobile phones. Again, this is something developed on a unique material called RFSOI silicon. And using our technology, it allows that silicon to deliver at performance levels that wasn't possible before MST came along. Lately, we've been really busy on some of the most advanced transistor developments, which are called gate-all-around type of transistors. They're being used at the very bleeding edge, like the 4 nanometer and 3 nanometer and 2 nanometer nodes. And using our technology, one of those nodes, the sizes are getting so small that the yields have been a problem because just having a little bit of dopant that moves to the wrong place during the manufacturing process can cause the yield to really decline. And so that's one of the things our technology can do. We can integrate it into those gate-all-around transistors and really improve the yield and also the performance. And people will be using that in the upcoming nodes, which are called CFET transistors as well. And then finally, we do a lot of work with DRAMs and same type of thing as advanced nodes. We help to improve yield, and by using our technology, they can reduce the variability, and that allows them to make DRAM chips smaller. Obviously, that's a commodity market where cost is everything, and so we think that's really an important factor that we're bringing there.
Okay, and one of the biggest challenges in semiconductor industry is moving from lab innovation to fab adoption. What specific hurdles has Atomera encountered in this business process, and how are you overcoming them?
Yeah, it's true that the process of lab to fab, a new fab process for a company, a smaller company like us that doesn't have our own foundry, is quite challenging. And in particular, those last two application areas I talked about, gate-all-around and memories, it's so hard to get access to a fab that has those type of process nodes. So I would say the number one impediment that we have is we've developed a new material, we've simulated it, we've done a lot of independent testing to show that the physics should work, but then we have to integrate it onto a wafer, a patterned wafer, let's say a gate-all-around or a memory wafer, and process that to the end, then do electrical testing to see if it really improved it. And that's just not something that we can do as a standalone company. We have to work with a partner. And so that's challenging. Also, as these devices get so small, just having access to fab facilities where we can even do our own internal testing is challenging. And the costs of those very high, and the cost of the metrology to measure what we're doing is also quite high. So those are three impediments that we see regularly.
Okay, and tell us about your collaboration with Arizona State University.
Sure. Arizona State is a very unique university in that they have their own semiconductor fab. It's kind of it was a fab from the late 90s, but still world class in terms of the ability to have a state-of-the-art clean room and very advanced semiconductor tools in that. So we lease space inside the ASU's fab, and we lease it from ASU. And so we work closely with them to enable the very advanced tools that we've installed in that fab and the environment that's necessary to do this testing. So the facility makes it unique. I don't know of any other university in America that has a dedicated on-site state-of-the-art fab. Out in Albany, they have one that's even better, but it's not really, although SUNY Albany is associated with it, it's not SUNY's fab. So that makes Arizona unique, but also their faculty is very focused around some areas that would benefit us. In particular, epi technology is epitaxial deposition is what we use to deposit our material in the semiconductors. And ASU has got a good body of research underway on that. And secondly, they really also have a lot of work that they do on metrology, which is the measurement of very, very small semiconductor devices and structures. And they do a lot of work there. So, we work with them in their facility, but we also work with their researchers, and they're great students that come out through their research team. And we've been lucky enough to hire a few of those over time.
Oh, great. And well, how do you make money?
Yeah, we're not a semiconductor fab. We're a licensing company. So we're not a patent licensing company, but we're a technology licensing company. So what that means is, let's say a big semiconductor manufacturer says, we think that your technology could help improve the yield or the performance of our devices. We would go in there and we would show them how to best integrate our technology into their process. And every fab has got their own unique process. So it's not something we can publish to the world. We have to really understand their specific process and how we would integrate in. And then we work with their engineers to make that happen. We run a lot of wafers and we test that. And this is not the type of thing you typically drop in and get instant success on. It takes an iterative set of processes. So we're our team, I would say, our company has three main parts. One are the material engineers who are developing the actual material and the manufacturing process for that material. Second one are integration engineers who do consulting work with our customers to help them figure out how best to integrate it and get the best performance out of it. And the third one, also very important, are our simulation and modeling team who develop the models that people can use. And they kind of bolted on to industry standard TCAD development tools so that they can model our material specifically in their process. So all those pieces come together so that a customer can get it. And once they are convinced that it has a real benefit for them, they'll license it from us. We'll teach them how to manufacture it. And when they make wafers, they'll pay us a small royalty.
Now, do you see yourself getting beyond the license-based business and push for broader integration of your MST technology into high-volume manufacturing?
Well, certainly it's our goal that our customers will get into high volume manufacturing. We don't have, I mean, we're trying to stay a purely license focused company.
Hmm.
That's what, one interesting thing about us is that we went public on the NASDAQ in 2016 as kind of a pre-revenue licensing business. Our investors really like the business model that we're standing behind here with the low CapEx requirement, but high potential revenue and gross margin. And so that's what we'd like to continue to do. But there's some new areas that we're working in particular on wafers. And I could see a point where we might manufacture in low volume some wafers, primarily for sampling to customers. And then ultimately, when they went to high volume production, I think the economics will work better for them for us to license it and they do the manufacturing themselves, but remains to be seen.
Okay. Now, you personally have held executive roles at Broadcom and Altera, managing multi-billion dollar divisions. How has that experience shaped your leadership at a lean, innovation-focused company like Atomera?
Yeah, it's a pretty big change for me, where
Hmm.
I was running very, very large businesses, really focused on sales and growing the overall sale. And I'm kind of more of a startup R&D type of environment that we're trying to turn into this licensing powerhouse. I'll tell you a little story. When I was at Broadcom for many years, I was on the executive staff. So every week we would meet and we would talk about problems that we saw in the industry. And one of the problems that I was having with my various product lines, there were some chips that were getting so small that when we got to the 28 nanometer node, which happened in around 2010 to 2012, we could see that it wouldn't make sense for us to transition that chip to the next generation FinFET node because the cost per transistor actually went up when you went from 28 nanometers to the first FinFET node. So, we were struggling with that a little bit as a company to try to figure out how do we continue to move our cost model down lower. Then I went off to Altera, and I was there for several years, and I could see the same type of issues that they were dealing with. There are other issues that we saw in the semiconductor industry. Like at the time, there was very little venture capital dollars going into new semiconductor development because
Hmm.
it had just fallen out of favor. In about 2014, I left the semiconductor world and I went to a venture firm and I looked at a lot of the semiconductor companies they had. And I also was thinking about these problems that we'd been thinking about at the executive staff of these two very large companies for so many years. And the one that I really focused on was trying to figure out how we could bring a big process improvement to the older process nodes, the ones who've been in high volume production for a long time. So I was looking around at that, and that's when I found this company called Mears Technologies. And at the time, they had developed this great material, had a lot of promise. They had very little work with customers so far because it's expensive to get to the point where you can do that. And they were working a little bit on a shoestring at that point. So ultimately, I looked a lot at what they did, and they got to know me and ultimately asked me to come on as their CEO and try to see if we could get to a significant round of financing so that we could take the company and start taking it out to customers. And in 2016, we did that. We took it public and I think we raised about $30 million and we're able to really start engaging with customers. And today we're working with almost all the large semiconductor manufacturers. We either have an active program with them or they know about us and we're talking with them about something. So, long answer
Uh,
to your short question, but
Nice story, nice story. Thanks for sharing that. And now looking ahead, what application or market segments do you see as most ready to benefit from MST?
so we have a few market segments, including power and RF SOI, that we've been working on for quite some time, and I'm hopeful that we will we'll be able to transition to production with those guys sooner rather than later. But I would say the market segment that I'm most excited for the long term of the company is in the gate-all-around area. There's so many challenges with the newest transistors. They're just so small. I don't think there's any company in the world that will disagree that it is a huge challenge trying to get these things into high volume production at reasonable yields and cost levels. And our technology can provide improvements in a number of different areas. And we're talking with those guys about that now. So we have active programs underway. Those, I think, to the extent that our technology gets adopted into the next generation node, I think we'll stay in there as they move forward into newer nodes and get more widely adopted as well. So what's coming after the gate-all-around transistor is something that's called CFET, complementary FET transistors. And the industry is really starting to think about the structures for those and the challenges they are. And we're right in the thick of providing thought leadership on how our technology could help.
Okay, and what is the best way for our audience to find out more about Atomera on the internet?
Yeah, so we have a website, www.atomera.com. And on there, they can find more information on a lot of our technologies and, our patents, we have a lot of white papers and articles that have been written about us. And so they can find a lot more information about us there. And,
Okay.
And there's also a way for them to click and follow up for more direct contact with us from our website.
Okay. And Scott, is it okay if I ask you a couple of personal questions?
Sure.
What do you do for fun outside work, or what is your personal passion?
I do a lot of sports, but I would say my personal passion, if I had to make it generalized, is building things. I love to have a carpentry project around the house, and I am I would say I love cooking for a large group of people. Like my ideal thing is to cook big elaborate dinner for 20 people, do all the planning, think about exactly how it'll be served and presented and everything, and then execute on all of that with lots of irons in the fire simultaneously. I would say that's something I love.
Okay, well, look forward to an invitation from you for the large dinner here. And Scott, can you also share something about yourself that most people at Atomera who work with you don't know about you?
Sure. Well, I think one thing that my employees don't know, most people don't know, when I was younger, when I was just out of college, I actually built an entire house with my brother.
Wow.
He had a young family and not enough money to hire builders, so he and I kind of banded together, and over the course of a year and a half, spent all of our nights and weekends and vacations building a house from the ground up. So, which was quite an experience. And, in this world, when they say, did you leave anything behind of value? Now and then I can drive by that house and say, well, I did that.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Where is that house?
It's in Massachusetts, where I grew up. So not a very short drive from here to check it out, but my parents and family still live in the area, so I get to that town more or less multiple times a year.
Well, thank you so much, Scott, for taking time to record this interview. Have a great day and stay safe.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, this is Sanjay Gangal from Sanjay Tech Cafe.